Hashtag sound design. There you go. Make sure we're back on our claps, right? It's very important. Anyways, enough about that. You are all here for real talk, and we're looking at a friend of the channel, Jonathan Marlin. It's Shifter in the chat right now. Shifter 25, is that your name? 25? 52? 25. Shifter 25 in the chat is Jonathan Marlin. This is not a sound design reel. Jonathan knows that. He knows it's a sound design focused stream. He knows this. He knows this very well. But, so that said, I'm not gonna be, I'm sure Matt won't be either. I will not be giving you like really extensive feedback on your music, man. Like, it's not really what I'm here for. And there are also much more qualified people to give you feedback on that kind of thing. But well, I will fully, happily give you feedback on just everything else, basically. Happily. Yo, Jay Hillman, good to see you. It's been a little while. NVK, that's Nick Von Canel, is that right? I'm trying to recall. You were on Real Talk like a year ago or something, right? Riley, what's up, man? I'm sure Riley gives him feedback. Riley Koenig, a composer for, well, with Power Up Audio often. Definitely doing his own stuff too. But a talented dude, been with us for a long time, since with us from the beginning, really. NVK sound, we're gonna do live sound on stream. I mean, like, maybe, kinda. It's so challenging, man. That's the thing. It's such a pain. Like, it's super hard to do live sound design because I use, like, my rig is a PC and Mac working in cahoots, and I do my design on the Mac side, and I stream from the PC side. And it's challenging for like a variety of reasons that are all difficult to contend with. Things like I'll have pop-ups on my desktop that have things like even this shouldn't be running right now. I'm gonna do this. I just realized. Starting soon! Like in this moment, I just realized this shouldn't be running. I have Dropbox running. I'm gonna exit this. And like that small thing, you know, like Dropbox running, a pop-up appears and it's like, now updating this file name. The file name in effect breaks an NDA, you know? Or we have just the simple fact of like technically streaming my Mac screen to my PC and then letting you see what I'm doing and having the video available to see also so you can see what I'm syncing to. And like all the tools I use is across like multiple screens. So it's so goddamn difficult. So I did a while back, I did like the Towerfall thing. Occasionally if there's design or editing work that's like relegated to a single screen, like in RX or FL Studio or something like that, I might do that. But in general, it's just so hard, and it's often more trouble than it's worth. It's just so hard. So, if/when we move into a studio space and get something a bit more tailor-made for like streaming setup, then like maybe we can do that kind of thing more easily. Something that, you know, eliminates those risks. But in general, I mean, the reason we did Real Talk in the first place is because it's just easier. Like, it's so much easier to still talk about sound design and not have to worry about everything else that is listed, right? It's so much easier, and it gives back, and it's like there's a lot of checkboxes that it takes care of. But I also recognize that it's people like seeing kind of, you know, how the sausage is made. So. Thanks. Enough from that one. I cranked this chrome fader back up here. Johnny, good to see you. Gray as well. A lot of good names in the chat today. Barney. Man, it's been a while. So we got Jonathan Marlin here. It's jmarlinmusic.com if you want to follow along, Riley Koenig. Yo, sub over sub also. Yo. And yo, DVS, this is a crazy, crazy chat right now. Holy. DVS 3131, that's Robbie Elias. Genius, sound genius. Once guest host. Dang. Just Matt saying, yeah, we've done it on the Clay streams a couple of times. It's a setup to do. It is a setup. It's tough. And not exactly how we would usually work. Yeah, it's you kind of like, make concessions on how you'd actually do your job sometimes because it's not stream friendly. It's yeah, it's just hard as hell. It's a super difficult thing to stream. It's not like programming. It's like and turn on stream and like and good to go. And your biggest problem is like readability of the fonts on the screen. That's it. And everything else is good to go, right? So it's tough. It is tough. And when it comes down to like doing the work, productivity and like getting it done for a deadline is usually just a higher consideration. This is the simple fact of it. You know, getting it done and getting it done fast and well and in ways that are better for the project but not so good for the stream. I mean, it's just weird. Like it discourages you from doing things like I got to go across, you know, the room to get something recorded and I can't like move the camera to see what I'm doing and stuff. It's just challenging. It's really challenging. Anyway, so Jonathan Marlin, home, about, projects, contact, and the classic link that goes to the page we're already on. So we've got a composition show reel. Is that what this is? It's beneath. Okay, sure, I understand. And then learn more beneath. Refined front page. I like it a lot. Twitter. The link works. Excellent. Powered by Squarespace. Cool. This is a very featureless page. So branding wise, I mean, even just glancing at it right away, like this font versus this font are immediately different. So branding wise, you're not really winning any points right now, but carrying on. About. Here he is. It's a good pick, man. I like this. Sorry, Johnny Mac. Tried doing some streaming stuff, realized it's a lot of it, a lot of it was just trying to get workflow and audio routing to work properly. Yeah, exactly. Like this, even this right now is like held together with like toothpicks and marshmallows, man. Like this thing is gonna come crashing down at any moment, I'm sure of it. It's a wonder that it has stayed operational for as long as it has. All right. Audio hijack, grab all your audio and pipe it through recording software. Yeah, I know what that too. I use like TeamViewer to get my Mac screen on my PC side. So I was like streaming my Mac screen through the network to my PC on the same desk and then capturing that to OBS. So there's delay to the video and stuff. And also the frame rate's like 15 FPS tops. So you have people in the chat being like, why is the frame rate so bad? Or like, why is there a delay? And it's like, oh my God. So it's challenging. Jonathan, as the banner says, my name is Jonathan Marlin. I am a composer and voice actor, currently based out of Tennessee. I think I know that. I write music for video games in any genre, from metal to orchestral to electronic Italian folk. Is that one genre? Crazy. I'm also in the process of learning sound design and implementation. Cool. I would like to know more about you, though. I mean, things like I write music in any genre is a very common thing to see on composer bios. And then saying you're learning sound design implementation, like, that's cool, but like, what is this doing for you in terms of marketing your work? So just take a step back here for a second, Jonathan. I mean, and this goes for anyone in the chat who's looking to get work. It's my strong opinion that anything on your page, if your goal is to get gigs and get hired, then it is my, yes, closely held opinion, strong opinion that everything on your page, every decision, every piece of content should be there with a part to play in achieving that goal, right? So if you have something like this, like I'm in the process of learning sound design and implementation, okay, that's fair, it's honest and true, but like, what is this doing for you in terms of getting hired? And assuming your goal is to get hired from this page, right? Like this is at best saying, come back later, stay tuned, and I will know how to implement your audio. Maybe that's worthwhile, but I mean, I don't know. I'm interested in what you can do now. And yeah, Matt's saying, I don't want to hire someone in the process. True. Neither do I. I totally don't want to. I want to hire someone who has the chops now, who can do it. And I'm not saying you should lie and say that you can do it. but I'm saying that, I mean, I had a teacher years ago who, this fellow Rob, who has been doing live sound in Vancouver for like decades, I'm sure, something like that at this point. And one piece of advice that he gave me, or gave our class, I suppose, that kind of stuck with me is that if you think it's at all possible for you to do a thing, even if you can't do it at that moment, if you think it's possible for you to do it at all, then tell them, yep, no problem. And then leave the room and then start sweating. It's a careful balance, obviously. You don't want to overpromise and be like, oh, I can totally like code your game for you and I don't know how to code. Like, it's not going to be a good choice. But if it's something like, if someone says, hey, do you know how to use Wise or how to use Fmod Studio? And this game is due in 6 months. Like, if you think you can realistically learn how to, like, learn enough information and enough knowledge and refine your craft to do it successfully by that date, then sure, tell them, like, absolutely, I can do that, totally. And then put the work in, hustle, and learn and get it done, right? So this kind of thing, if you're in the process of learning sound design and implementation, I mean, just say you do sound design and implementation, it's fine. Like, that's totally fine. Don't lie and say you've been doing it for years. It's a balance. You want to, like, it's like marketing yourself, right? So just phrase things in ways that paint you in a positive light if you want to get hired, right? And bearing in mind, of course, that if you promise you can do something, or you say you can do something and then you can't do it, then you might get blackballed and not hired again, right? Or even spoken of negatively to that person's peers in the industry. So just realize there's a balance there. I mean, speaking from a personal standpoint, not naming names, obviously, but we once worked with, like years ago, we worked with a fellow who assured me that he had a solid grasp of music theory, and so I recommended that we do this thing. I'm like, hey, make sure this thing is focused in like the pentatonic scale, and pentatonic was not a thing that he understood, and ended up being like a whole tone scale and really weird and angular and kind of dissonant for the positive thing it was supposed to represent or supposed to color. And we had like a really serious conversation and ended up firing him. Like, that's just a real thing that happened because he's like, yes, absolutely, I have that skill, and he just didn't have that skill. So, perhaps long-winded, but just realize that it's okay to, like, be kind in how you describe yourself. I mean, everyone does it, right? It's like, think of like being a realtor, man. You know, it's like, hey, here's like a cozy apartment. It's like 400 square feet. It's like, it's cozy, you know? It's not that it's cramped, it's cozy. So be cozy, not cramped, all right? All right, so, yeah, Johnny Max saying live sound tech here. I've had people ask me if I can use different consoles, and I always just said yes. Watched some YouTube tutorials and winged it. They never knew. And they hired me again and again and again, and then you told them. You told them? You get to a point, hey, and you're like, all right, I've been learning hard. Yeah, if you possess the skills to learn something successfully, then do it. All right, good pick, though, man. I like this pick a lot. It's good. Twitter. Confident. Let's go to projects. Kung Fu Shadow Fist. It's a VR brawler. Really. Based on the old Nintendo arcade games like Streets of Rage and Double Dragon. It's VR like Streets of Rage? What the heck? Is there a video of this? Is this a link? It is a link. Let's see this. Okay, but it's not like the same perspective as Streets of Rage. I was trying to figure out how that would work, like a side-scrolling brawler kind of thing. These are tunes? All right. Cool. Back over to this. Punch dudes until there are no more dudes to punch. That's good. Okay. Synthwave and rock themes. All right. So you will be writing Okay. Still en route, I guess. Moving sim. That's cute. Game jam thing. Or July 1 game a month jam. Yeah, sure. And we got a bunch of blank space. Okay. And so it's just those two things, yo. Or three things? Two things. Two things. Home. Let's have a look at this reel, yeah? Sure, I'm cranked up. Turn off my sidechain, lest a truck drive by. But first, Jeff Hillman says, Trial by Fire is a great way to jump right in. Learning blueprints in Unreal for me was a direct result of, hey, can you get this sound to work properly by the end of the week? Yep, and lo and behold, lots of documentation reading and at-home testing that I'd hardly spend the full time to do otherwise got it done. Yeah, I fully faked my way through Fmod Designer at my old job for like weeks. And I still wonder if they knew. I have no idea if they knew. But shout out to Stefan Schutz for his Fmod Designer YouTube tutorials, because I was like, how do I do anything? And I looked at that and mostly worked. All right, let's have a look here. Press play. Crank it up. Full screen. Let's go. Okay, thanks, man. Thank you. Hey, Savoy. Yeah, we don't look at composition reels very often, yeah? This is interesting. Cool. I'm curious, like, this is... The 4x3 is freaking me out, man. Am I crazy? Like, is that uncommon? I feel like it's uncommon. I'm trying to... I looked at it, like, more than a few times during the video and was like, why is this 4x3? But is that... Am I just being weirder now? Is that a normal thing? I feel like I need to look at some other reels to like assure myself that this is a weirdly shaped video, but maybe it's not. I think I'm just crazy. I must just be crazy. I'm sure it's fine. I mean, I don't know. It feels old timey, you know? Hey Sony, good to see you, man. Glad you can make it. Is that weird to me? Like, is it? It feels old-timey because it's 4x3. Like, that's kind of an older aspect ratio, you know? But I think I might just be being ridiculous right now. So, okay, so Robbie's saying that 16:9 is more common. Yeah, right? I feel like I've gone full screen on things before and it's filled the pane. This feels weird. So, yeah, 4x3 feels a little strange. Just as a presentation note, it's not like a deal breaker, I'm sure, but to me, it's there's almost like this subconscious kind of thing, like, oh, this guy must not be like with the times or something. But I don't know. It's probably just I don't think you should listen to me too much on that note. So Nick Zhang, what's up, man? It's been a while. Without SFX, the music sounds weird. It feels like music with no context. Yeah, it's tricky, man. Because like I do want to. We always say that like for SFX, put music in your music reel and like SFX in your SFX reel. And I felt kind of the same way, but I don't know. I think that it should be on its own, honestly. I do like the idea of having show reels that are like, here's the games I worked on, period. But I think when you're looking to showcase your music specifically, having it front and center is a good choice. Yeah, I would do that instead. So let's have a look at just the general presentation here. By the way, if you're new to Real Talk, which probably very few of you are, thank you for all your returning, all your return patronage, hanging out. But here's the criteria down here. If you need a refresher, we're looking at presentation. That's kind of the whole site and such, like we were saying with the branding and things. If all the info is there, if it's easy to contact you, all this stuff. Down to, and I guess presentation for the reel itself, presentation weighs down to things like aspect ratio, titling and like bookending content and flow and all this stuff is really important in that respect. Kind of everything that is not just the content, but like how it's presented. Yeah, not have those. Yeah, so the 16:9 will not have this going on. Agreed. Like the black bar things, just feels. It feels weird because like I don't know anyone that even has a 4:3 monitor. So this is kind of like a not accurate portrayal of the content. Even it's kind of weird. Down to material selection, we look at the content in your portfolio and on your reel and what that might suggest about your skill sets and past work history and what you want to be doing in the future. For content quality, is your stuff good? And as I was saying, this is not as much a music review kind of stream, so I'm not going to do too much of that. But in general, for sound design submissions, we look at kind of where you can level up your work, whether that's in like specific areas, like, hey, this like specific frequency content could be a little different or a little more attention paid to it or whatever. Or it can be very broad things like, hey, your stuff is way too quiet, way too quiet. And finally, distinction. Just are you standing out? Because I can tell you, I mean, I am okay with telling you this. I'm sure our team is too. We're hiring right now. We're kind of in the middle of looking at candidates and such. And I can say we received well over 100 resumes. It's more in the realm of like 150-ish. And it's a lot of content. It's a lot of content to get through. And even going through those, it's like I couldn't tell you a lot of them today, It's kind of unfortunate, but it's just the fact that you don't recall a lot of them. And for AAA companies that are well known, like Riot or Blizzard or whatever, they get like hundreds of resumes, and it's pretty brutes. What I'm saying, Jonathan, I mean, and you know this, like when your page looks like this, it's not hurting you like directly. In that, what I mean by that is that no one's looking at this page being like, oh, this is obnoxious, And I've fully seen pages like that, but it's just neutral, right? It's not really doing anything at all. So in that respect, it's not really helping you from the perspective of like they're going to remember you in the future. It's kind of it's just super generic, right? Sparkly Starburst, are these reels from people who applied to your role? No, we're not going to do that. That feels a bit too, the curtain's being pulled back a bit too far in that respect. If you've been watching Real Talk for any amount of time, you will, I feel it's so funny with this job posting we put up, I feel like there's no company in game audio or in the game industry that is so public about how we view content and like what is appealing to us in a job application. And even with that, a lot of people submitted things that are not even close to what we describe as a good application on Real Talk. So unfortunate. So that said, we have definitely looked at reels from people who did apply, but we're not looking at those right now. All right, so back over to the presentation point. So let's look at the site in general really quick. We mentioned the generic nonsense. Contact, Basic contact form, cool, great. Name, first name, last name. All right. And then that's that. It's kind of, that's fine, I guess. I don't love contact forms, but it's all right. We saw projects. So you had more than just these things on your reel. So are there, I mean, didn't you? It was Moving Sim, Kung Fu Shadow Fist, and like a, what was the first thing again? I can't recall. Yeah, this thing. So why isn't Sanity Razor on your other page, on this project page? I'm curious. And I'm not saying that everything in your reel should be here. I mean, it's not, I feel like it probably very easily could be. But when you only have two things, I feel like a third would be a very positive addition, you know? It's a really old project that never even got to the point of having a logo. Oh, okay, so it's almost like a detriment. That's a tough spot then, because you want to show your work, but it's kind of like a, here's the thing I did, but like don't worry about that too much, you know? So I will say that if that's the case, Jonathan, you're currently leading with it, you know? So the thing you started your reel with is the thing that you don't want me to ask about, you know? I mean, I'm not saying you don't want me to, but it's too bad. And it says in development on the reel. Yeah, good call, Josh. Absolutely. Tony, you should totally do all the application assessments online here on Real Talk. Totally. No issues at all with that. None. Crazy Raz, good to see you. How you doing? Welcome on in. Yo, so make sure I didn't miss anything. I feel like I didn't. So Mosaic Music was saying, I meant to say this earlier, maybe it's because I work with a lot of independent devs, but presenting music reels with SFX has been much more successful for me. Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't have a ton of experience, and I haven't talked to a ton of people regarding like what they look for in a music reel. So I mean, you're absolutely right though, Mosaic. I mean, in terms of aiming your reel at a given demographic of like potential hirers, if that's a big studio, if it's something like Blizzard, they will want to hear your stuff like loud and proud on its own, and in context helps too, I'm sure. If it's developers like, I mean, we often hear clients of ours, partners of ours talking about, or they'll phrase things like, I'm not sure how to describe what music I like, but when I hear it in context, I know if I like it or not, if it's going to work. So I feel like that kind of speaks to what you're talking about regarding like seeing it in context, in game with SFX. And in that case, they'll be like, yes, that's a good suit. That suits this project well or not. Whereas having it kind of disembodied by itself might feel less like a game to them. I don't know. It's debatable. It's definitely a debatable thing. I will say that we, like Matt, who's working hard today, Matt and I often say that it's really important to have your stuff out front, because I mean, what happens, Mosaic and everyone else in the chat, is that if you have something like music being stomped on by explosions in your reel, then we can't even hear your content anymore, right? So it's often the case that when you can't hear something, or when it's when it's competing with another track like voiceover or SFX, or music for an SFX reel, that you might feel like, oh, they're maybe hiding something, or like they're leaning on SFX for a crutch. So he's saying that, Matt's saying, I don't trust an SFX reel that has music in it. Yeah, because it's very common for us to see a reel like that where there's SFX things that should absolutely be designed, but they're not, because there's music, and the music's like filling the void between this thing and this thing, where there should be sound effects right here, absolutely. And furthermore, I mean, I'm way more interested when I'm looking to hire a sound designer. I'm way more interested in how your stuff can stand on its own versus how it sounds in the mix. It's important to hear things like knowing consonance and dissonance and how your sound effects come across in the mix and how that operates in context, but that is a lesser concern. And if you have a background in music theory and you're like, you can totally express, you know, how to phrase things and how to design in context with sound effects alone. You don't need music to do that, you know. So, in the end, it's really important to aim your reel at a given, like at an intentional, audience, right? Like you're intending for a company like a AAA studio to see this, or a indie developer to see this, or a company like Hexany or Hyperduck or us to see it. It's really important. So Jonathan, like you're working on these kind of indie things or these smaller projects. Is that what you're looking to work on? Like more kind of freelance indie dev things, game jam things, that kind of stuff to get your reel filled out. Let's do this again. So again, presentation wise, this opening is super generic. It is, yeah, it's like really, really unbranded. So even this text here is different than this text, and it just snaps into view. This is better than nothing, but it's barely better than nothing, you know? It's got the content. So having it there at the end and the beginning is important. Having 130 long is good. It's cool. I'm willing to listen to that. But it's just really generic. So in the end, if you're looking to have a career in this thing, man, so Crazy Raz in general, I'm not just saying like have the same font for things. I'm saying it's kind of a larger concept of branding. And I'll bring up a page that is vastly better instantly. And it's this one, you know? Not a composer, mind you, but the fact is this page sticks out in the mind. It's got like a really clear intent, and that clear intent does a variety of things for you as a get your shots. It does a variety of things. It cements in the mind as an impression. It's like, oh, this looks great, and the fact that it looks great means that Damien put a lot of effort into it, and effort implies heavily that he's serious, you know. So if we have a page that's like Jonathan's for a sound designer, and it's like a Squarespace page, and it's got kind of basic, like colored, like there's nothing here as far as like graphic design or anything. It's just like a brown background, right? So having this only versus a page like Damien's, it's like clearly Damien is the one that seems more serious, right? So, and furthermore, you're working in a creative field, you know, so being able to show that you understand that presentation is important and understand how certain things work together in concert is a skill that you can kind of translate from audio into visuals also. I am not a visual designer, but I can look at something visually and be like, yes, this is cohesive, and it has like one kind of creative direction on it. And I can apply my understanding of creative direction of audio to that visual content. I can't design it personally because it's not my forte. It's not my field. And it would be kind of arrogant to think that I can do a better job than someone for whom it was their job, right? So in the case, and also, yeah, Robbie raised a good point too. Oftentimes you're pitching yourself to visual people. If you're pitching into a larger company, they have like recruitment staff, right? And that person in recruitment might not even be specialized in audio. They're just the first line of defense, like the first filter to get through, and they look for certain skill sets and like, okay, this person looks serious, like they have audio at all, they have a website, they have a reel there. That's like baseline, right? I mean, I can tell you, like for our hiring process, like if you don't have a reel at all, it's like, well, we just have nothing to look at, right? So that's really important to have like these baseline things. So and also for indie devs, I'm sure Robbie's saying too, like indie devs are not specialized, oftentimes not specialized in music. They're not specialized in sound design. They're specialized in presentation and like making a finished, cohesive work that has internal congruence of its various parts and such, right? So when you have a page like Damien's that just looks slick and there's various different parts, but they all fit together as one finished piece, that is the same thing as making a game and having all these different parts and making one finished piece. Like it's the same thing there. So it inspires confidence, you know? So Jonathan, I mean, that is, I know I was saying it doesn't hurt you, but like having a slick page can help you so much. Helps you so much, man. So if you've got some money lying around, you want to save up a bit, like just go to some graphic designer, go to some web designer and or even a video editor and be like, yo, I am specialized in music and I'm doing this thing and I want to have this result. Help me out, you know? Toss them some cash and make it happen. Learn more. Let's find out, Josh. It goes to the About page. Yeah, okay, so I'm a big fan of trimming the fat. And this is totally fat because your page has your site has 3 different pages. I guess 4 with the home. And you just don't need this thing here. Yeah. So back over to Matt. He's saying, so maybe for me, a music reel with SFX in it is less detrimental than an SFX one with music in it. I kind of agree with that. I don't know. But it puts something else other than the music to judge on. And if your SFX work isn't as good as your music, that's a problem. True. Or if you have someone else's SFX, you're getting judged by someone else's work, or judged by way of someone else's work. So that's a problem too. I totally believe that some devs can't fill in the blanks and need the whole picture. So like Kevin said, who the focus of your reel is for is very important. Heck yeah. And Mosaic, I back to Matt too there. So I'd say if you're clear about what the viewer is listening to in the reel, say your music, but not your SFX. I understand. Then it's fine. When applying for gigs, you tend to be applying for something specific, and there's more communication than just throwing the reel at them. Yeah, okay. Yeah, totally. I mean, the thing is, if, like, for our company, for example, we were, like, extremely clear about what we wanted. And not just on the job posting, but on this stream, right? So people were equipped. They're very equipped to make successful, effective applications. So it's a bit disheartening and kind of, I mean, maybe it's a unique problem for us, actually, is that although I'm sure people have the same kind of problems, like Robbie working in AAA, if you're like reviewing reels there for a job application and everything in the reel is film work, or everything in the reel is like indie stuff, or it's like casino games for mobile, it's kind of like, well, why are you applying for us? Like, why aren't you making content that inspires confidence in us that you can handle a AAA gig? So with us, it's like same thing. We get film content or we get nothing. And yeah, if it's not being aimed at you, then you just feel like there's no marriage here. Like, how can I be sure that you're a good call as a collaborator or an employee if you're not demonstrating this? You know, it seems obvious, but it's often missed. Like, it's really often missed. It's crazy. It's actually, like, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. All right, so the reason you keep the home page, it's one of the few opinions you have on visuals. You like symmetry. Keep the home page. What do you mean, like keeping the home here? I think it's okay. I don't mind having a home page here. This is fine, man. This is the least of my concerns. Like 4 things and one of them's home. Who cares? It's fine. Just find some help, man. And then think about how, like, this reel is an extension of your page, basically. And I think it's really important to begin thinking of yourself less as just a composer, and not instead, but also as a brand. So thinking of yourself as a brand and pitching your brand, like you're marketing you, right? And I think it's an important detail that a lot of freelancers miss, is they're marketing themselves. So anything you can do to help inspire confidence in people who are looking at your stuff is going to be a positive thing. And it's first impressions, right? Like landing on your page and it looking sick is a really, really positive thing, you know? It's very positive. Like, I mean, I don't like show you some applications that came in that are really, really positive, but there are various things that land on our doorstep that were like, yes, this person is serious. Yes, they work in indie games, and already it's like, okay, well, let's dig deeper. Like in the first 5 seconds, we know this, you know. So think about that. Like if in the first 5 seconds, can you make someone like want to hear your content because they haven't even heard anything yet, and they're like, wow, I want to hear it now, you know, as opposed to like, okay, let's listen, I guess, and it's like this generic font on a black background, you know. It's kind of the case. It kind of makes you need to work harder. Like if they're like not quite on board yet, and they listen, they're gonna be like, let's have a listen, I guess. But if they're like, this is sick, let's hear this, and if it's fine, they'll be like, wow, okay, this is like, I can work with this, versus like, I'm not sure this is good enough yet, you know. It's an investment. Exactly, it is an investment, but it's worth it. Like, it's your career, so just invest in your career, right? Invest, yo. You'll get returns. So back to presentation. Also, on top of this, these being all the same, Josh loves talking about this, actually. Josh always says that, it's Josh Adam Bell in the chat. He loves saying how it's really great to have, like, kind of different weight in your titling. Like, here's his stuff here, right? So it's like the kind of bolder Skull and Bones for the title, and like, you know, not quite so bold here, and then like smaller text here. It's really helpful to kind of understand what this thing is at a very quick glance. Whereas this, all three of these things are equal importance, but they're not. You know, it's helpful to have like a glance and look at it. Like that title is perfect. Like Josh's title is perfect. It's really good, you know. And carrying on, although nice job on the drop shadow, that helps it be readable on different backgrounds. Good choice. Skies of Arcadia, so audio rescore. So you did put the developer on these ones, but not the rescore. I feel like it might be a good call, man, just out of courtesy, you know? Just to say, hey, thanks for making this thing that I'm rescoring. Ooh, yeah. Okay. And then also like the I mean, again, they'll be fixed if you hire someone to help you out with design and stuff, but like the text, not just the weighting, but like also the style is like different stretch and stuff. See, like this is like so wide, and this is this. It's just details, and details matter, man. Like, I mean, I'm sure anybody hiring, if I have like this person and this person, and their skills are identical, but this one's got a typo, it's like, well, now they're just a bit lower, you know? So this kind of thing, just this detail work, it can absolutely matter. And I would encourage you to put just as much time into that kind of stuff as you do the content therein. All right? Okay, so let's glance at our criteria once more here. It's a bit Comic Sans. Yeah, it's a little bit cheesy. And again, like the text overall, it needs a lot of work. And again, if you hire someone to help you out, or find some pal working in design or whatever, then that kind of thing will be taken care of. Like all these problems will be fixed in the same, like one fell swoop, right? So down to material selection. So we have this thing you're leading with that is detrimental because you don't want to talk about it. I think you could like include it. Like, is it fair to say canceled? Like canceled project? I think that's better than in development. Like in development, it's kind of a lie, isn't it? If I understand you correctly. And then maybe putting it like here in the reel rather than leading. Like I'd much rather hear your hottest stuff you're most proud of, you know? So like this kind of thing, this being the newest thing you're working on, I don't know if you're proudest of it, but yeah, unreleased might be a thing. Sure, like whatever, it is some language that is more accurate to what we're looking at. Because then, as I just looked at your projects page and didn't see it, I was confused. Like, why isn't this thing here? You know. So if this is your hottest stuff, you're most proud of it, then put it at the front, man. Because keep in mind, I mean, just like sound effects, I'm sure it's the same thing. If someone's hiring for music, and they listen to 10 seconds or 20 seconds or a minute, and they haven't heard your best stuff yet, then you're asking a lot of them. And you're hurting yourself. You know, it comes down to the first impression thing. Again, we had like 150 reels to go through, And you better believe that in the first minute, we're like, oh, okay, we've seen enough on some of them. Totally. And it's not because we're like unwilling and we're like discourteous and don't want to listen through all their content. It's just that we got work to do. You know, we have to get through it. And if it's already clear in the first 10 seconds, or if it is being indicated in some way, even if it's not clear, if what they have conveyed to us in the first 10 seconds is that they can't do the work or they're not a good fit, then so be it, right? So, and again, back over to like indie devs. If you post like, hey, here's a fun game, be an indie dev and post, I need a composer on Twitter and see what happens. Like, it's just, you get a deluge of individuals coming at you, right? So that time becomes really, really, really valuable. So put this at the front. If you love this the most, then just change the language and make sure it's very clear. So bottom line is make sure that your hottest stuff is up front, yeah? What is this? Endless? What does this word mean? I just saw it right now. Endless. Good way to melt your email server, Matt. Yeah, cheers. Classic. Oh, I see. So classic, and is this like the game mode or something? Is this on your video or is this in the game? Because yeah, so this text, I can't tell if this is part of the game or not. Like, this text is so similar to your video's text. And also, okay, two modes, different music. So I guess one thing worth considering is I didn't even see this the first time we watched through it. I was looking in the middle of the screen and looking down here because that's where you have trained me thus far to look in this opening clip. I looked here the entire time, didn't even see classic or endless the first time around. So it may be worthwhile having something like have this left align instead and say a moving sim. And like the date also is like, is that really relevant? I don't know. I don't really care when things are made. I just want to hear your best stuff, you know? And the thing about dates is the longer it gets from that date, the more it becomes like why or what you've been doing since kind of thing. So have this here and then make the text change down here with the text because all the information is together, right? Have like moving sim, parentheses, Justin Palmer, and like composition or something. And then hyphen, like if you want to name the track or name the mode or something like that, put like classic mode or endless mode, that might be worthwhile. It's cute though, you have like the frantic piece for classic. I mean, I will say, who is Justin Palmer? It's like a game jam thing, like July month, game of the month. I don't know. I'm trying to repeat the words I saw on this page, and I'm failing miserably. He said, for the July 1 game a month jam by Justin Palmer. It's a simple, silly game. Yeah, exactly. So person made the game. So there you go, Shifter 25. There it is, man. I mean, realize that it's you don't. The more you leave up to assumption or up to guesswork, the worse it is for you, right? So if you have this opening clip and it's like, here is the name of the thing and like what it shipped on, and the developer, if it's like always the same format exactly, then you're going to be very clear every time. Whereas this endless moving sim August date Justin Palmer, like it's like really weird having the name there. And furthermore, because you didn't have a date here, it says in development, I guess, like kind of a date, but not really. And there's no date for the rescore at all, so that's kind of weird. And then there's no, like alpha release has no date again. But again, it's kind of like the release isn't really a date. It just means that it's an alpha. So it just having consistency is really important too. Okay. I won't comment too much on like the the quality of the music, but I will comment that it struck me a bit. It felt a bit jarring to me personally when we changed from classic to endless, and the style changed like quite a lot. You know, if this is one game, I would kind of expect, or perhaps if it was me doing it, I might consider coming at it from a standpoint of like, okay, so what are we doing with this game? What is the creative direction of this project? And if it means we're doing kind of a Looney Tunes style full orchestra, but like kind of silly, but also kind of classical amalgamation into a piece, like this finished piece, then cool. Well, that's now our direction. This is like going to be our thing. And I would orchestrate for that. Like that's my instrumentation now, right? So it feels a bit like a disconnect. Like here's the classic piece, like in the timpani, and then moving away, we got like the brush snare and the smooth jazz, right? So what it comes down to is if I'm again coming at this from an angle of I'm looking to hire you for my project, right? So if I'm thinking that, then I'm again trying to take all these different pieces and like make one cohesive piece that can stand on its own and has like a voice, right? Has a clear direction. But if I hear these two different pieces, fair, they may have the same melody, but hearing only two pieces, it's like they seem a bit like they're for different games, you know? And that can be a really cool style if it's like, hey, here's this piece from the game, and here is like a different take on it, and it's like the same. It's like a remix almost, like a cover, where it's got the same kind of feel, or same kind of motifs rather, not feel, same motifs, but like completely different orchestration and such. I mean, heck, we have we've got like let me find this really quick. So like this is a great example. So like the Celeste soundtrack, we've got stuff like here's your first steps, right? Cool. Right, and then B-sides, we've got, and it's like a totally different style. But this is clearly, it's very clearly stated that this is a remix, right? Whereas this, like classic and endless, and it's only two things in the entire project, it's a bit less clear, and it's also, again, back to inspiring confidence. If you want to inspire confidence in folks that are looking to hire you, like this kind of thing might come across like, oh, I wonder if they can make two tracks for my game that seem like they're for the same project. And I mean, the thing is, I know you can do that. I'm not saying you can't do that, but that's kind of what this communicates a little bit, right? So, yeah. So talking about transitions here, yeah, it's definitely a talking point. Yo, we saw some pretty sick. I've seen some pretty sick reels over time in sound design and music, and ones that are like designed like a trailer, where it's moving from piece to piece in a deliberate and engineered, designed fashion, is sick. It's so good because again, it speaks to like, hey, I can make a complete piece that's sweet on its own. Here it is. So Fade to Black. It's a bit of a palate cleanser, sure. I think that if you can't crossfade to make it sound good, then Fade to Black might be a good call. Like this is so different. These two pieces here. Let's go here for a second. Here we go. Oh, sorry, I'm turned way down for Celeste. Back up. Here we go. Like, that wasn't too bad. I mean, mind you, this is... I mean, yeah, we kind of fall off a cliff. Like, we fall off a cliff with the Looney Tune style into the smooth jazz. And like, phrasing is important too. You know, I mean, I often talk about this in the stream, but the idea of taking people on a journey and like proving that you can do that, because sound is all about, like, sound support and music support is all about supporting the journey, right? Like taking someone on a little trip through sound, or at least with the assistance of sound. And with this kind of thing, like, the flow is super important. So if you have this phrasing where it's like 1, 2, 3, and now we're starting again, but it's like, oh, we're not, you know? So the phrase begins and then stops right away. So yeah, I'm not sure what the best way to do that is, because these are like vastly different tracks. So it's tricky. It's very, very tricky. Send words without the fade. Without fade? Oh, like with the hard, yeah. Don't hard cut. Absolutely not. Like, you want to fade it in some respect, whether it's a crossfade or like one of these, you know, kind of fade out then fade in. Yeah. And Tony's saying there too, yeah. So it's tricky unless you work very hard on transitions between the planned pieces of the demo, which is actually a very cool feat, and would speak loads to me as an employer. Yeah, I mean, I wish there was one reel that we've seen in the submissions to like us, like our company so far for the job posting, and it's crazy. Like, it's really interesting, and it's really unconventional, and it kind of breaks it breaks some rules that often come up on the stream, but it breaks them in like really interesting ways. And I don't want to tell you who it is or show you, because it's kind of, we're in that state right now, right? But it kind of does what Tony is talking about. Like, it changes from game to game in a really deliberate, and like, it's hard to see the seam. Like, it's hard to tell where it changed over almost, and it's really, really cool. So that kind of thing Tony's saying would speak loads to me as an employer. Like, heck yeah, that kind of stuff is baller, so cool, because again, it just speaks to like creativity. It speaks to seriousness. I mean, we're trying to be like at the top of the industry, right? Like, doing things in new and interesting ways, exciting ways. And like, what does that say? That says all those things, right? So it's a very positive thing. Okay, so Robbie's saying that Endless could be after. I think that's probably a good call, because this is pretty chill. It's not like falling asleep chill. It's not smooth jazz, mind you, but like, that's a, we're up here now, you know? It may be a better thing to kind of use the, I mean, as far as flowing and like transitioning, you can transition different ways. You can transition like visually and the style of it. So in this case, where the visuals change drastically from this to like matte textures, right? Like this orange period, or brown or whatever that is. So going from this to brown's a big shift. But the music changing from this kind of like chill-ish combat music into this might be where'd my pause button go? There it is. Might be kind of a little of a smoother changeover. And then once we have this foothold in this new style, this new game, then going from the jazzy jazz into the craziness might be a easier to stomach, because we're keeping a foothold in the content and changing only one aspect now, like just the music, as opposed to like both things, music and content. Yeah? And furthermore, this is blah, right away. That's, again, a huge step up from this smooth jazz, right? So this would then be kind of, if you think of like intensity over time, we've got, you know, combat stuff and like going down a bit into smooth jazz, like up a lot for endless mode, or for classic mode rather, and then blah, we're still up here, you know? It's not like this going on. I think that would for sure be a better move. Just for this. Savoy, any reason you chose such an old game to rescore? That's kind of a interesting question, actually. I was thinking the same thing. I meant to ask that earlier, but we were talking about something else. Because yeah, it's kind of a weird rescore. It's interesting. It's like, I don't know. This also kind of like the 4x3 and like also this. I don't know if it speaks to like suggesting how old it is, but like this says 2017 right here, but like I don't know when you did this rescore, you know? Whereas if you do a rescore of like the Last of Us Part 2 trailer or something like that, or like Death Stranding, then that's obviously very new. And it kind of has this like underlying implication that you're active and doing it right now. Whereas this might not have that. I don't know. Because you'd like to work on a game like that, and when you played through it, the music for this boss battle disappointed you. Fair enough. Okay, all right, fair. I mean, just be aware that it may imply some stuff. It might be fine. I don't know. Like for me personally, I was kind of like, why do you choose this track? This game. It's a bit strange. But again, it might not hurt you. I love how they just run up and just like gather around. Here we go. Let's do it. It's good. I want to play it. Okay, so that's probably fine for the time being. Again, we're not going to talk too much about content quality. I will say that the only thing that stuck out to me that I'll mention is the slapback on the snare is making me angry. It's like, but up. The transient's like, and I feel like it's weakening the snare as a result. But that's the one thing I heard the first time through that I was like, oh, I gotta mention that. Maybe a preferential thing, possibly, but I figure I'd mention it, Jonathan. All right. So as far as we're gonna 5:20 here, we'll probably wrap it up. So as far as here we go. Distinction. I would say that you are not standing out quite yet. I think that it would be a very good choice to, like Josh Adam Bell in the chat was saying, to view your craft and your vocation as something to invest in. And I mean, I don't know how much. I mean, someone like Josh, speaking from a standpoint of investment, I mean, I don't know if Josh. I don't know. Maybe I do know this actually. I don't think Josh spent money on this page, but I know he spent a whole lot of time. Like, this is so much freaking work. All this content. So whether it's an investment of time or money, like time to do the content or learn the skills to do the content yourself or whatever, or a matter of paying someone like the grand or two or whatever to make a slick looking page for you, like that's going to be, it's just that. It's an investment, right? So the idea of an investment being that it will come back to you in the future in greater amounts. So Josh invested and then got freaking hired. Go figure, you know? So, oh, there you go. So he has no money beyond the Squarespace subscription, which counts for something. It definitely does. This is not great. And just a whole lot of time and learning how to use Illustrator, Photoshop, etc. There you go. So just prove you're serious. You know? It's what you gotta do. Prove you're serious. So for Mosaic, a music tip, use more space. I think your stuff sounds a bit too full all the time without dynamics. I would agree with that. I think that space comment could also be applied to the panorama. I feel like a lot of stuff is right here, you know, and you have all this space to work with. I'd like to hear more of that. Yeah. Yeah, there's certainly some pan stuff in there. Yeah, mixing wise, there you go. So mixing, like, I mean, we could have a freaking masterclass in mixing right now, but I don't think we have time for that. Again, just down to mixing. There's like, geez, what do you? How do we? How do we talk about mixing, man? Like, we got. I mean, let's talk about this super briefly, yo. So, mixing. What do we have? We have 1, we got balance. 2, we got panorama. 3, we got frequency range. 4, we have dynamics. 5, we got dimension. 6, we got interest. All right. Can I make this bigger like this? I cannot. I would fill the screen with this if I could. All right. Font. Make it huge. 72. Let's go. Let's go. This. These are the engaging elements of a sound mix, all right? And this goes for everything. This goes for radio. This goes for television. This goes for film. This goes for music. This goes for games, interactive or linear, like everything. It goes for all of it. Okay? I'm going to give you a very fast 5-minute run through of these, okay? If you're learning mixing, Jonathan. So balance is the first one. Brett B. Patterson 2000. First you get the balance, then you get the panorama, then you get the power. I'm gonna give one of these to that. Thank you. All right, so balance is your relative mix levels between various things, like quiet and loud, all right? And the gist there is you make the more important things louder. And when I say more important, I mean the things that are most relevant to the listener. So in interactive audio, a lot of that, there's a lot of work done, and in AAA studios especially, regarding like making sure the most important thing to the player is being heard. Absolutely. Things like prioritizing voiceover, so that games like Ariel Gross gave a talk at GDC years ago about the about the voiceover in Saints Row, and how they had like different levels and things that are relevant to the player for objectives, like for mission completion, and is the most important thing, and then things that are story related is the next important thing, and then like things like particularly funny lines, like pedestrian lines, they try and make those louder and heard because they're good, and then like pedestrian filler is like the very bottom, right? It's something like that, but you get the idea. Like, it's important that these things are heard for a purpose. And in film, like, make sure voice lines are heard so that the viewers know what's happening in the story. Like, it's kind of obvious, but it's really, really important for that kind of thing. For music, the balance comes down to simply aesthetic and taste, and making sure that the instruments you want to hear are heard. Period. Panorama, we're looking at. So Stormblast, you're getting ahead of us, yo. You're on 0.5. Spatial range, we'll get there. Don't you worry. Panorama, we're talking about either the stereo field or the surround field, and I guess, or like quadraphonic or whatever you're working with. But generally, for a lot of what we're working on is stereo field. So we're talking about putting things in places with intent. So putting things over there, because if they're there, I can hear them, and we can then satisfy this point too. It's all interconnected, right? Panorama as well. I mean, in games, having things like on the left, because the thing is at left, and we want to be able to like inform the player there's something over there, right? It's very helpful. Or for like if it's a side scroller, we're walking to the right, and there's a big hero set piece coming up, and it's like giving off a glittering jewel aura, with a sparkly, like, little sparkly effect up top. If we hear it coming, it's like, oh, what's coming up soon? And you like drive player behavior to kind of like search the thing out, right? So panorama goes a long way. It's very, very good. Also, keeping in mind that center and hard left and right are sacred ground. Be very careful what's there. Okay, you'll hear them the most easily. Frequency range is kind of in the same realm as panorama. We're talking about using your bass and treble with intent, and being aware of things like masking, and being aware of things like, frequencies that are getting a bit too excitable, and you have mud or like way too much presence or way too many highs or low mids or lows or whatever. And be aware that oftentimes with frequency range, we're talking about like, if you have a full, here, I'm going to draw you an EQ right now. You ready for this? This is our EQ. 20 hertz, 20K, all right? If you have your guitars, man, like keep in mind, if you have like your bass and your bass is filling this area, your guitars don't need to fill that area. You can like cut your guitar off like this, and the guitar might sound weird on its own, but in the mix, it'll sound great. So just be aware that if you're mixing subtractively, you can kill off frequencies here and there. And that's, your mixing isn't like horrible for mud, but you can definitely clear things up a lot by recognizing what role different instruments are playing in terms of frequency range and EQ, and allowing them to satisfy that role and no other role. Like they don't need to do bass because the bass guitar is doing that. It's really, really important. Dynamics. Here we go. We're talking about compression and not just compression, but also like volume and intensity over time. So doing things like moving from, if you have a big explosion, don't move from a huge whoosh into that big explosion because it won't sound big. The reason it sounds big is because it wasn't big before it. So for like moving like this and then that was a massive dynamic change, and therefore it sounds large. Furthermore, just in terms of dynamics, we're talking like dynamic range. So things like taking the full loudness of like the loudest thing, the quietest thing, and being aware of what that distance is, what that range is in dB. And if it's a very compressed mix, like synthwave, for example, is really compressed, being aware that like the quietest thing is not going to be down here like it would be for a classical piece, but rather it's like up here and everything is like balls out loud. So into dimension now, who's that? Stormblaze? Dimension, we're talking about a sense of ambience, a sense of space, all right? And space includes things like position in space. You were talking about like an orchestral piece, the instrument being back in the room or like farther back in the room, sure. Reverb and like having reverb tracks that make sense, or reverb effects that make sense for the space you're in, to try to like convey a sense of what that space is. If it's a closet, or if it's a coffin, or if it is a trash can, or if it's a gymnasium, or if it's a stadium, or a forest, or whatever, right? Or a canyon. Like it's important that you have those kind of things, and that the various sound sources within that space are congruent with what that space should sound like. Because the moment you have like, you've got the snare in one room and the cymbals in another room, it's gonna sound it might sound weird. And again, if you're breaking the rules, that's okay. Just be aware that you are breaking the rules, and do it with purpose, right? And be aware you're doing it. Dimension also, in terms of ambience, like selling the space you're in, and if you're in an environment in a game, for example, that environment probably sounds like something. It sounds like a forest, or it sounds like a canyon, or it sounds like a horrific hellscape, or whatever, right? Even environments that are fictional or kind of devoid of space, like say like a dream space, that will probably still sound like something, And having that sense of space, like an endless void or something for a dream, like a cloudy endless void, that still sounds like something. If you have nothing there, again, you can break that rule. Have a silent void, but make sure you're doing it intentionally. All right. And the final thing, interest, is, so someone said, is melody interest? Like, kind of, maybe. I don't think that's really what we mean by interest. Interest is more just like kind of cool stuff in general. So in something like music, interest might be like a cool vocal effect, or a cool drum fill, just something like, oh, it's coming up right now, it's so cool. Like that's the interest element that makes you feel something, you know? Like that was so neat. So example like Celeste, the fact that we made all the music and sound effects like low pass underwater, that is completely irrelevant to gameplay. Completely. It doesn't serve any purpose apart from just being kind of cool. And I saw again and again on Twitch people playing Celeste and jump in the water, and then they kind of have like a little light bulb moment where they're like, oh, what was that? And they kind of like just go like beneath the surface over and over again. They're like, oh, that's so sick. And they keep on playing the game, right? Like it doesn't do anything besides just being cool. And that goes a long way to, again, this is all in the effort of, these are the elements of an engaging sound mix. All right? There you go. That was your 8-minute crash course on how to mix sound. All right? I'm going to catch up on the chat really fast here because I totally ignored the chat while I was doing that. So, here we go. So, there's Storm asking about spatial range. Yeah, there you go. And again, these are all interconnected. So you're asking if spatial range could be frequency range. Well, it could be, yeah, because some spaces sound more like than right. So if reverb is like really deep and bassy, that's going to imply something about that space. Or if like a droning ambience versus like a high present ambience, those sound very different, and they communicate different things about the space that we're currently in as a listener. Okay. All right, so more present, less reverb, more clarity, more center, less present, more reverb, more spatial. Sure. One of the most jarring things in a song to me is having one instrument that's hard left and right kind of by itself. Yeah, it can be bold. It can be a bold move. Real bold. Again, you can do it. Just be aware that you're doing it, all right? Subtractive mixing the first time. I had no idea what that meant. Oh, the first time around in Real Talk. Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, now you do. That expert paint demonstration cleared it up nice and good for you, right? Okay, so would that be like hearing footsteps above you on horror games? Above you on horror? Are you talking about space? Stormblaze, feel free to clarify what you're asking about there. I may have missed what you're referring to. The elevator pitch. Yes, exactly. Okay, so search why do recordings sound like ass in Google. Second results of PDF, a good read. There you go. Perfect. Yeah, like dimension. So hearing things around you is kind of dimension. Being that games are an interactive medium, you can hear things kind of all around you based on what your current perspective is. I mean, depending on whether the player has control, I guess. But there's a lot of things that weigh into that. Like panorama can tell you a bit about like what is happening around you, or hearing things like through a wall or through a ceiling above you or whatever. There's like a lot that can like imply where a thing is. Like hearing like carpeted footsteps above you that are muffled versus like you on a wooden floor. It then becomes clear that you're not in the same room as this thing making the noise, right? There's like a lot of elements, and it will rarely be like just one of these things as a consideration for whatever task or whatever challenge you're facing in your mix, or whatever objective you're trying to accomplish with a given element of a mix or with your mix in its entirety. All right. So, I think I'm gonna wrap it up right there. One last question: can you make a game in binaural recording? Yeah, freaking Hellblade has a lot of that, didn't it? I haven't played it myself, but I mean, doing a whole game binaural, that'd be kind of interesting game. But I do know there have been binaural elements in games, absolutely. I mean, VR, a lot of the work towards VR audio is very, they're pursuing spatial sound, right? Like having things that sound like they're over there versus just to the left somewhere. Like behind you to the left is way more important, way more informative in a VR kind of game design capacity, right? Okay, so there you go. Hope people appreciated that. Hope that was a bit informative at least. It was like full on the surface, the tip of the iceberg, right? Like each one of those elements you could teach a course on very easily. So, hope it helped. Okay, claps for Jonathan again. Thank you so much for that V2, my friend. Yeah, I want to be very clear. All of us are always very happy to see kind of how things are going with folks. So when more content rolls in, or when new stuff from familiar faces roll in, that's kick-ass. So thanks a lot, Jonathan. I'm going to play this again. Freaking tunes, man. There we go. So thank you, everyone hanging out. Thank you, like Robbie, being in the chat, all those knowledge bombs, dude. Thanks a lot for that. Everyone else for all your awesome feedback and your support for this awesome community. I'm sure Jonathan doesn't need to say it more than once. He's very thankful for all the content that this chat room provides as far as feedback and insight and perspective from a whole lot of different people in different walks of life and audio and such. So it means a lot. Thanks a lot. We do have relatively open schedules as far as submissions go. I keep saying I'm going to find time to schedule guest hosts again. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll do it soon. I don't know if Robbie wants to come in here again sometime. I shouldn't put him on the spot, but he killed it last time. And this time around, we won't do like a 5-hour stream or whatever the hell that was. That was way too long. So anyways, I'm going to crank these tunes. They're so good. I'll see you around, all right? Peace!